in terms of running a class, in terms of managing a class, in terms of many of the practicalities of running a Montessori school, of what should we keep central in this process of approaching children in this way. And I think that those are some of the things that we are going to focus on in these next few days. And today we are going to begin with a look back that we have done already on the course. We are going to look back at a very major and important topic, a topic that I feel is much talked about. We talk about it a lot, but the ideas that we find most difficult to implement in a practical level in the Montessori environment. And what are those? That topic is observation. So today we are going to return to the idea of observation, and we are going to see how record keeping can support our observation and what we can do with this observation that we actually, all the information that we collect. And for that, I'm going to go back to the idea that Montessori's approach to observation is really something that okay, I've muted everybody. I think that what is really, really important for us to consider in observation is the idea that in order to observe, we must be prepared. Montessori constantly talks about the idea that in order to support the child, we should be prepared. The adult in the Montessori environment must be prepared. As an act of preparation, this preparation, she indicates, are on 3 levels. And we know that. What are these 3 levels of preparation? In very practical terms, we can talk about spirituality. A spiritual preparation, a preparation of our being, of our spirit, of our inner selves, our emotions. So in order to approach the child, we need to cleanse ourselves, need to remove from our hearts all the disappointments, all the sadness, all the negativity that life has offered us. We have to remove all that and approach the child afresh. We have to approach the child, as Montessori says, as a nobody. We approach the child in Education and Peace. She says, who are we? We are a nobody. So how, just imagine, look at all of us. What do we say? My school, my class, my child. So we put our me first, isn't it? It's my child, it's my class. My class must be better than other classes. My school, it must be better than another school. My child must have a good life. Yes, so we put ourselves, our ego, in the way of approaching children. So a lot of this is about us. So Montessori's approach to spiritual preparation is the putting down of the ego. We've spoken about this many, many times in the course. And how do we do this in practical terms? It means putting down of the ego and thinking that our work is not so important. Our work is important only in that it supports the work of the child. So what do we consider our work in a Montessori environment? Yes? And we must remember, we've just come through a year of COVID. We've come through a time when we approached children online. We've come to all these things have been happening that we have had to live far away from others and society. So this is the year we've been through. So what is it that we all consider Montessori work? What is it that you spent a long time this year doing? You've written albums. You've written presentations. You've written exercises. You've written games. Right? These are exercises, materials, based on the work with the materials. How to use them is very difficult. When we first looked at the snake game, when we first looked at the constructive triangles, when we first looked at the large bead frame, we found the steps of the presentation difficult. We had to practice it many times in order to understand how to do it. We are still struggling with how to quickly actually present a piece of material to the child, right? So this we've spent a very long time on it. We have spent time watching presentations. We have spent time writing presentations. And for those of us who are in school today, we have spent a lot of time offering these presentations to children. We've given it to the children. If we haven't had the opportunity for we really haven't had much opportunity for actually working with the children, because our teaching practice and observation is not complete yet on this course. But we do know that it's very, very important that the presentations are offered to the child at the right time. So we've spent a lot of time with this on the course, right? But constantly we've said that this is based on observation. This is based on observation. Observation is important. Observation is what helps us, guides us to what the child is. Yes. So these are the dichotomies of how we have taken this in. So what do we think is our work? We think our work is the work of presenting materials to the child. But Montessori says over and over again that these presentations are not important. These presentations are meaningless if we do not observe. So if we look at the quantum of time that we present to a child in a Montessori environment, there are 30 of them. You have to present a lot to each one of them because the work is done individually, right? We must have faith. We must have faith in what? We must have faith in the child's power of the absorbent mind. When you are presenting to one child, you're actually presenting to a room full of absorbent minds, right? So when you present to any child, you are actually presenting in a way to the whole group. This work is indirect. No one needs to teach the child. The child pulls it in from the environment. You give a few, I mean, I've worked with children for many years. Yes. And if you, let's calculate the number of sandpaper letters we have in English. 25 sandpaper letters if you don't count Q. Okay. So if you think about this, if you think about these presentations, the 3-period lessons that you must offer with the sandpaper letters, you can calculate that there are how many? Yes, 25, 3 at a time. Let's say 24. That's a lot of sandpaper letter presentations for a child, isn't it? One child. But have we ever given them? As a teacher, I've never given them. By the time you give a child 2 or 3 sandpaper letter presentations and you bring a box of sandpaper letters and you ask the child, which ones do you know? The children will always tell you that they know more than they've been presented. That is who the child is. The decimal cards that we spent so much time practicing, yes? You put out the beads one at a time. You put them out, you put them out, you put them out. By the time you put them out, the child is ready to have taken it over. Why? Because he has seen it in the environment, in this mixed age community. So, but yet, in spite of knowing that children have the capacity to take it in from the environment, we persist in thinking that presentations are our work. Where does this come from? For me, I feel it comes from a wound, from our own education. When we went through our own education was based on lessons that were given to us. Yes. So the teacher's work was the work of the teaching of the lesson, of the content. So till today, even though we have done the Montessori course, and even though we work in a Montessori school, and even though we are in the process of training, the teaching aspect of the material is always what is at our forefront. It is there within us. So if you're thinking of managing a class of 30 children and you're thinking of teaching them concepts, then I want to tell you that this is a waste of time, isn't it? You can get the 30 together and give it to all of them at the same time, much easier. Keep the 30 of them in front of you. Tell them fingers on your lips. Keep quiet. And just present it and then let them do it. What a waste of time to give it to each one child at a time. Why do we do that? We do that because of observation. If we don't observe and we don't keep observation records, and we feel that we don't have time to observe because there are 30 children in the class, then our work stumbles and we get what I call it's a good school. There are loving teachers. There are caring people. There are caring children. But this is not Montessori practice. Montessori practice is not based on presentations. It's not based on the lessons that we offer a child, whether it's a 3-period lesson or any other lesson. Montessori practices are offered. Montessori environment is based on the observation that we have done of the child, and therefore the presentations that we give must respond to the needs of the individual child, that particular child. So when we think of observation, we need to think of observation as our main work. It is our main job. So in order to collect information which is meaningful for us, yes, which is meaningful, then what is it that we must do about collecting data? Observation. Why do we observe? Right? We observe to find out patterns. We observe to find out interest. We observe to measure what we must give the child next. What does this child need? We want to make that assessment. What is the goal of every single piece of material on the shelf in the Montessori class? Is it to teach colors? Is it to teach shape and size? Is it to teach addition and subtraction? No. The aim of every single piece of material on the shelf is really to call forth the child's interest and build concentration. Why concentration? Because once the child knows how to work, how to pursue his own work, how to engage with it, and how to pull the information that he needs from that work, then our job is done. What is on the shelf is a bit immaterial. It doesn't matter. So what is on the shelf is not a curriculum. It's not a syllabus. What are we studying in the Montessori environment? We are studying the nature of humans. We are studying the nature of the child. We are measuring his character. Is he able to sit? Is he able to concentrate? Is he able to focus? Is he able to work for periods of time? Is he able to correct his own error? What a difference, right? What a wonderful way of thinking about it, isn't it? I just want that to trickle for you all a little. Our goal is not to teach them letters. Our goal is not to teach them numbers. Our goal is to help them build their character, to help them persevere. What is perseverance? To keep going when it's difficult. How should they go? They should go on their own. They should be independent. They have to do it alone, by themselves. So the goal of the material is to build their character, to create a society in which everybody functions both independently and in service of others. So whether or not you're doing math or language or practical life or sensorial or whichever area of work you're in, the goal is to do it without hurting other people, respecting the space and needs of others before myself, putting other people first. So if we need this information, why do we need this information? If we are trying to measure what? We want to measure interest. So in order to decide whether I should give the child the geometry cabinet, I feel that all of us as teachers, all of us as students even, what do we look at to say, when should I offer the child the geometry cabinet? We look down at the age. Oh, he's 3.5, he needs geometry cabinet. He's 3 years old, we need to give him this. He's 5 years old, oh my God, we have to give him the charts. So this is, like I said, a bit of a waste of time, because what are you doing? You're looking at the age. You're saying at this age, you have to give this presentation. For that, you can take all the children who are 4 years old and give them the presentation. Why are you individualizing a presentation for every single child? It is because you give it when that child is ready. But how do you know if the child is ready? You have to observe. So observation must be consistent in a Montessori environment. This is a very, very important idea. We must be consistent. What is consistent? Consistent is every day. What do you do when you're learning something new? Any of you, even now. What do we do to learn something new? Yes? What we do to learn something new is that we do it many times, over and over and over again. What will make us do that? How can I make you learn something new? Can I ever force you? Yes, all of us have been in supervised practice. Can I force you to pay attention? I'm here observing your supervised practice. Once have we been able to force you to pay attention? Not to talk to everybody in your family who's running around your rooms, but actually focus on what you're doing and actually practice. Can I force you? No, nobody can force you. Who has to do that work of concentration? Who has to pay that attention? Only that particular individual person can do it. It has to come from inside. When can it come from inside? It can come from inside when there is interest. In spite of the 1,000 difficulties that all of you had at home this year, everybody left everything for 3 hours and just sat here on Zoom in front of it. Is it easy? No. Is it easy to sit here and watch somebody lecture all the time? Not at all. It's very difficult. But why did you do it? Because of overwhelming interest, which forces you to do things which are difficult. So this ability that we have, yes, to focus, this attention, this interest is within the child. We know that the child has deep attractions to the environment. We know that the child has a sensitive period. We know that he has the absorbent mind. But those attractions reveal themselves very subtly. And there are 30 of them in the environment, learning from each other. So we may miss it. So do we have consistent ways of recording what we see? It's very hard when we take random notes. Yes? Today, I've written about a child could not recognize any puzzle words. I went through a teacher's records recently. Yes? Could not recognize the puzzle words. The next time she met the child, the comment that she has made is, she cut paper in different shapes. So with that 1.5 month gap between one comment and the next, where does that take you? Nowhere. I don't want to comment on COVID testing, but let's go to malaria. Yes? If you have malaria, what kind of data must be collected? How must it be studied? When should it be studied? So the blood test is taken. Somebody has to observe after the experiment, the testing is done. Somebody has to observe the blood sample and actually make some studies. How should that study be done? That study has to be done consistently over a period of time. And it must be the same thing that is studied every day. If you're studying the growth of a plant, right, a scientific growth of a plant, right, what would you need to do when you're looking at it? What would you say? Can you say, oh, it's so pretty, it's got lovely flowers, and then 3 months later you say that all the leaves have withered? Does it give you any idea of what happened to this plant? Nothing. Gives you no sense at all of what happened to this plant. But if you look at the leaves and you count them on the first day, 4 leaves, day 1 at 8 o'clock. Next day, 8 o'clock. What happened to it? The same leaves, the color has changed. 5th day, 3 more leaves. 8th day, 9 more leaves. 10th day, the color of the leaves. Everything is tracked every day. So you know whether there's a change or whether there's no change. Every day about the same thing. If we don't study children like that with some tools which allow us to consistently measure something, then we are lost in observation. You'll have random facts that don't allow you to build up any picture. A trainer of ours used to say that if you don't write down your observations, and if you're not consistent in mathematical and scientific observation, you won't have observation at the end of your observation period. You'll have only imagination. It's easy to imagine. It's easy to fill in the gaps with things that did not happen, but which we thought must happen or which we thought would happen. Yes? So remember, Montessori talks about prejudice. You have a very sweet, nice little child who's constantly working, pretty child. Yes? We don't expect her to pinch someone. So in your mind, you stop seeing it, that this child has a problem, has a difficulty, because she looks as though she's a child who's working. So then we stop looking, we stop seeing, we don't measure, we don't see the disturbance, because we are so used to, we are so focused on the fact that this child is a certain way that we cannot change or shift our goal. So that is a very important thing, and that's one of the reasons why we should record. In order to record accurately, yes, we need to have tools. And these tools are very important for us to track the child's progress. All of us have attendance in schools. Yes, we mark attendance. What's the point of marking attendance? Can you put that into your chat box? Why do we mark attendance in a school for young children? Why do we feel that it's important to mark our attendance, whether the child was there or not? What are we generating? Why do we need a record? Yes, Rehana says it's a record. Record of what? And why do we need such a record? Why do we need an attendance record in a school? It's an observation record. This child was here today. It's consistent. It's done every day. Yes, in every school you have an attendance that's done every day. So you want to know whether the child is consistently attending school. Why do you want to know whether the child is attending school regularly? Why do we want to know that? How does it help us? Because what will help us? Supposing the child has been out of school for a month and you're seeing that the child is 4.5 years old, yes, and is struggling to read, and you look at the attendance record, will it give you an answer? So a data that you collect must give you an answer. The progress, I hate the word progress, and I'm going to use the word development instead. Yes, progress of the child is the development of the child. Yes, I want to know how often we study these attendance records in a school. We never look at them unless it's an administrative job. The administration needs it. We give it to the administration. We never ever use it in order to study. Every month, do we look at the attendance record and see, write a summary of what has happened to a particular child out of 40 days. so far in the school year. The child has come 38 days, right? So in these 38 days, why did the child not come for those 2 days? Do we analyze? Do we study? Do we know? Supposing in a school year, there are 180 days, 365 days of the year, let's say 2 months off. Let's do the math and let's reduce it even by half. 180 to 200 days of school working days. Yes. In these working days, how many times did the child take a day off? So let's say it's out of 180 days, it's 30 days. Do you have 30 attendance leave letters in your records? Have you checked it one against the other? We all ask our children to give us attendance leave letters. Do we check it one against the other? Have we done an analysis of the why the child has not come? If it is 30 days of illness, it's very different. There's a different picture that's emerging than 30 days of mother went away due to delivery. Is that something that we understand and we use to interpret the child's psychological state? Is the attendance something that we study? If we don't study it, why do we keep it? Then it's only a tick list. It makes no sense. We add it up for the school board or for the authorities without knowing why we keep it. But the attendance gives us a lot of stories. If we allow it, if we study it, and if we keep it together. So it is not enough to observe. The child is here, I tick it. I tick that the child has come. That's one form of observation. It's a form of record keeping. But how does it help you to understand the child better? So it is not enough to just have a tool like an attendance register. It's a good tool. But it's not enough to have the tool, and it's not enough even to fill up the tool. At the end of the year, you also have to be able to analyze the data that you've collected. If we don't analyze the data that we've collected, then the collection of data itself is meaningless. Data can be a big point of awareness. We are now in a state in this country where there is no data on so many levels in India right now. We are struggling due to lack of data, isn't it? We are seeing the chaos that is created through a lack of data. Population data, death record data, infection record data. We are struggling right now without data. But even that data that is there, we are not able to interpret. If the data is inaccurate, that's a problem. Yes, because why is the data collection important? It is because the data collection is what helps us to make a decision. That is the child who has taken a month off because the child's mother had another baby. Right? The child was out of school for a year because she went away to another place with her mother during her delivery. If this is the situation, is there some decision that we need to make to support the child's development yet? So that is only one child. In the same way, there are 30 children. So for each of the 30 children, that attendance data will allow us, if we have the data, we've taken it consistently and we've studied it consistently, it should allow us to respond to what the data is showing us about the child. So if you analyze the data and you see that, okay, the child, there are 190 working days. The child has been on vacation, taken a, traveled with his parents to Europe, let's say, has gone away in the days when we were all able to travel. Yes, gone away for 4 months, taken leave for 4 months. Or the child has taken leave to go to various weddings and occasions. There's been a week here, a week there, a week here, a week there, and it's ended up with 6 weeks that the child has been out of school for various reasons. Is there something we can do to support this family? Should we do something? Should we talk to the parents about why school is important? Yes. Should we talk to the parents about what the child needs? Should we spend some time with the child to see what the child needs and where the child is struggling? If the child is appearing not to struggle, is that true or is it not true after missing 6 weeks of school? The child may not show signs of struggle, but is that because there are no signs of struggle, is that the truth? How do we find out? We can find out only through consistent record keeping. If we don't write down our facts, then we will not have much data on which to build our analysis. I'm going to share a chart with you that Dr. Montessori has in the Advanced Montessori Method, Volume 1. Sorry, just give me a minute.